Okay, so welcome everyone to our last YMS session of the year this year. It has been my pleasure to be the president over the last 2 years with our founding officers. And as it is my last session, I just wanted to thank you all for being a part of our efforts and to all of you continuing at Washington next year. And I hope you will continue to grow YMS in the years ahead and support more students like us to enter the healthcare fields. As a reminder, our new officers are in charge of running the seminar today. And with that, I will go ahead and hand this over to our new president, Akarsh.
All right, thanks, Akash, for that introduction. Today, our speaker is Dr. Srinivasan. Dr. Srinivasan is a clinical professor of medicine at Stanford University, associate director at the Stanford Center for Asian Healthcare Research and Education, fellow at the Stanford Center for Innovation in Global Health, board member at the Stanford's Clinical Teaching Seminar Series, and member of the Stanford Teaching and Mentoring Academy. She is co-director of the One Health Teaching Scholars Faculty Development Program, an international program focused on faculty development for health professionals, education around the world. She is also a contributor to CBS-KPIX Medical Mondays. Dr. Srinivasan brings her skills as an educator, physician, health services researcher, and entrepreneur to considering how scalable technologies can improve healthcare. Her work in virtual health/telemedicine and new patient engagement models has been published in the NEJM Catalyst, which is a leading healthcare innovation journal. So Dr. Srinivasan, once again, thank you so much for coming. Akash tells me you have a slideshow or something.
I do, yes. I'm so glad to meet you guys. And I know we're a nice small group today, so maybe we can have some good dialogue and some conversations. So maybe you guys can all introduce yourself. Tell me what year you are and what you're interested in.
Of course. So I'll start. My name is Akarsh. I am a junior and I'll be president of this club next year. And as far as my interests, I've been doing some work in neuroscience and neurobiology, and that's been pretty fun for me so far.
Very great. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Trina?
Hi, my name is Trina. I am a sophomore. I'm going to be the vice president of this club next year, and I'm interested in developing medicine, such as, for example, finding a possible cure for many different types of cancers. And I'm not sure if you heard of this, but I'm really interested in something called phages, which is basically like anti-virus killings. And there's like a ton of phages, and I'm really interested in doing research about those.
Very nice, great. Then I see Yasmini. Oh, Yamini, sorry. She may not be here. So maybe we can just do video on people, and then anyone else can unmute. Rishi?
Hi, my name is Rishi. I'm a freshman right here, and I'm going to be secretary of this club next year. I'm really interested in the field of biology as a whole, and I just want to pursue pre-med.
Very nice, thank you. Varun?
Hello, I'm a junior. I'm the treasurer of this club, and I'm really excited. I'm not exactly sure what I want to be doing in the future, but right now I think I want to do something in pre-med.
Thank you. Okay, and then Neela.
Hi, my name is Nila. I'm a freshman, and I'm pretty interested in biology and neuroscience.
Great. Can you guys bring your cameras down so I can see your face, Rishi and Neela? That'd be great. Okay, good. All right, Rahul. Okay, Rahul's not with us. Sadhana.
Hi, my name's Sadhana. I'm currently a freshman at Washington, and as of right now, I'm really interested in neuroscience.
Great, thank you, Sadhana. Parneet?
Hi, my name is Parneet. I'm currently a freshman, and I'm really interested in the dermatology field.
Very good. Rick? Okay, Rick may not be there. Maya? Well, Maya unmuted, but we can't hear you. So people are welcome to keep their videos on. It always makes it more fun so that we can actually see each other and we can respond to each other. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I've got some prepared comments. I'll kind of take you. Oh, it says the host is disabled participant screen sharing. You may want to enable that. Still disabled. Who's the host?
Oh, yeah. I'll go ahead and make you the host real quick.
Oh, great. Okay, so let's see if I can share my screen here. So I just wanted to share a few, I don't know how long this will take, but I'll just go through some of the things that I'm doing. And now that we're all getting to know each other, we're just gonna, this is kind of a change the world talk, or at least, how you can really give it a good try, okay? So what do you think? So all of you, I want you to just take a minute right now and then think about what you think the purpose of your life should be. And not necessarily what you want to be when you grow up, but rather what impact you want to make. Okay, so just take a moment and think about that and write it down and type it out. And you can, and if you can, I'll have you put it into chat. And I'll have my timer on. You've got about 45 seconds left. Okay, once you, and again, it isn't like you're definitely going to do this forever, but at least this is how you're thinking about your life right now. Okay, 30 seconds. Okay. And as you sort of think about it, wonderful. So Mila says to make a positive change in the world by helping others and make my family proud. It's beautiful, Mila. Great. Wonderful. Good. Okay. I can get this timer to turn off. Sorry about that. Okay. We have, Varun writes to somehow make a positive and meaningful impact. To set out, Akash writes to set out to change the healthcare field and become a neurosurgeon at some point. So all of you are starting to think already about what you want to do and how your life can be bigger than yourself. And I think especially for people in academic medicine who are trying to, who are teaching and doing research and doing other things, we think a lot about sort of how we want our life to actually have some meaning, and what that meaning means, and how we can contribute in a way that utilizes all of the talents that we've gathered over time. And we're all standing on the shoulders of giants and pioneers. So Elizabeth Blackwell was the first woman physician in the United States in 1849. But there's other women who are in the sciences too, and I'm just sharing the women in the sciences, not because there's not men in the sciences, but because I think that as we think about trying to encourage people to be, to dream their dream, these sort of early pioneers have kind of helped us. Ada Lovelace, who really wrote the first algorithm used by a computer and was doing with an analytic engines, and Mary Keller, who got her PhD in computer science and was one of the first people to do so. And I share this just because just thinking about women in STEM for a minute, there's a lot of women going into medicine these days. So it's about 50% men and women, but not so much in computer science and some of the other physical sciences. And so I think we're hoping that as you think about what you can do, also think about how we can try to diversify the professions for all of them. Okay. So a part of the things that I've been interested in over the years have been thinking about this idea of equity. And I don't know why this is moving around. And sort of the difference between issues with equity and equality. Are you familiar with those ideas? Yes, no? Thumbs up, reactions, yes or no? Thumbs up, okay. So when people talk about equality, right? So they talk about treating everybody the same, and if giving everyone the same leg up. But when you think about equity, it's trying to have everybody reach the same finish line. And so that's a little bit different. And so part of the push in medicine is for what we call precision medicine and personalized healthcare, right? So that we're giving everybody the tools they need to be able to achieve their goals. And in some ways, we are talking even more, just this kind of another, I don't know why that second one's in there, but there's also this idea of justice, right? So where there's actually no barriers at all. So as we're trying to build programs and as we're trying to do things, we want to try to build programs that are getting to equity and then eventually to justice, where there are no barriers to people being able to achieve their goals and dreams. Okay, so the idea here is that with concerted effort and a little bit of luck, you'll be able to change the world. And it's really, it's almost an imperative for all of us to make life better for the people who come after us. Okay. And so, as you think about like what change you want to make in the world, you have to ask yourself what kind of skills and behaviors and network you want to be able to have those changes. And I'll tell you, my path through medicine has been fairly random in some ways, but I've always pursued my passions, and it's never led me astray when I've done that. Okay. And it's a time really when we can think about the acceleration of innovation. And we're at really a crux in human history where the pace of innovation for so long was so slow. But really, from the advent of the printing press to Leeuwenhoek's microscope, and then all of the things with industrialization, and now we're kind of in the digital and post-digital age. You can really see the acceleration of technology, the acceleration of connectedness in a way that's going to let us all come together. Okay, and this is true whether you and even if you think about things with mobile technology, which impacts a lot of what we're doing in healthcare these days. The coming of 5G is going to be amazing. It's going to be really like opening a fire hose of information that's going to let us have instantaneous connectivity and connection almost everywhere. And as we think about both the large and small scale of things, right, we have to be, I'm saying these as kind of contextual ideas. It's important that we keep these things in mind as you consider how you want to bring together all of these things into an innovation mindset where you're putting together culture and attitude and imagination, putting together your knowledge and resources to be able to figure out the change you want to make, and then getting the skill sets to do so. So along my career, I've done a lot of different things. I am a health services researcher, an internal medicine physician, a medical educator. I taught around the world, I've been a journal editor, worked in simulation. I'm doing more now with scalable technologies and also as an equity researcher. And more recently, I've been doing a little bit of medical correspondence stuff. And so the big idea is that change has to be informed by data. And as a data scientist, part of what I do is try to build programs that are going to answer important questions and then generate data to be able to help us make changes. Okay? So my work in equity has recently been sort of in these areas with educational equity, emerging technologies, clinical care, and leadership. These are just a few of the programs that I've been working on. I'm going to touch on 4 of them. So we'll get to all 4 of them in a few minutes. Okay, so the major idea here is that equity is really the result of deliberate practice. And you may not be familiar with something called the quintuple aim, but the goal of every health system these days is really to do 5 things. It's to try to improve the health and well-being, not just of a person, but of a population. Enhance the experience of care, reduce per capita costs so that we don't go broke, and then also make sure that we're addressing healthcare inequities and increasing also the well-being engagement of the workforce. Okay, so keeping all of these things in mind, I was asked to also talk a little bit about my personal journey. So I hope you don't mind. I've got a lot of family photos here. So hopefully you can bear with this and you don't mind so much. These are my grandparents on my dad's side. My uncle or my grandfather was a lawyer, and then my grandmother was a stay-at-home wife, and my other grandfather on my mom's side was a district principal, and they both had very large families. These are my parents when they were leaving India from Bombay to come to Canada to do their PhDs. And this is like, do you guys know what BOAC is? It's a British Airways. It's the British Overseas Airway Corporation. So anyone who was leaving India from the Bombay terminal at that point, they would all go take a photo here. So there were all these professional people who'd stand around taking photos of them. So they came to Canada where I was born, and then they moved to America. It was me and my brother when we were little kids. And growing up as an expat in the Chicago suburbs was not easy. There was a lot of racism and a lot of sort of anger and not violence per se. There was some violence, but not too much. But it was not a welcoming place if you were not a sort of a person who looked more like a Western Anglo-European type. So things have certainly changed over the years, but when I was growing up, it was very, very different. And I grew up in Chicago, and then I went to a university in Illinois. I was an engineering major initially, and then switched to honors bio. Went to Northwestern for medical school, and really had kind of a winding way after I did a research fellowship at the Regenstrief Institute, which is associated with Indiana University. And then I joined UC Davis as a medical educator and as a health services researcher, doing stuff, really trying to build connections between quality of education and quality of care. I was doing more inpatient work. This is me with one of my teams on the wards. And then over time, our family did what most people did in the diasporas, which is they really dug in, they worked very hard, and everyone had kids, and everyone was growing up, and people who were immigrants found their way to being very professional by dint of just hard work and a little bit of luck here and there. But my parents at a wedding a couple of years ago, my brother grew up who we never thought, he used to be a DJ in San Francisco on top of all of his user interface stuff. Got married to a lovely woman who's a physician, and they've got a couple kids. And these are my niece and nephews. My family traveled and started living all around the world. These are a few places that are at. This is me with my cousin Purnima in London a few years ago at Cambridge. And people got married and they had kids, and we came together and had so much fun over the years. But at the same time, we also were having the standard immigrant experience of acculturation, of really finding ourselves having many opportunities and having to make a lot of decisions about how we wanted to spend our time. And so that's just a little bit about sort of how I made, I don't know what my Hawaii slide is. And so starting from 2 people leaving India to come to the United States, we now have so many people here, and we've been so grateful for all of the opportunities that we've been given. I did a lot of teaching. When I was at UC Davis, I was trying to improve patient care by improving physician and allied health education, and really taught all over the world and learned about other health systems, and even tried to start a couple companies along the way, which was a very good learning opportunity. And so, I was teaching all over Asia. We've had doing interprofessional education. And this is part of, did my sabbatical at the University of Tokyo. And this is me with the leadership of the University of Tokyo School of Medicine, after I had done a leadership course on educational leadership. And, engaged learning looks really all the same, no matter where you are all around the world. And, it was really gratifying to understand the differences between health systems and how people practice. And it changes that type of sort of broad travel and the ability to work with people all around the world gives you ideas on how you can also begin to make changes. And so this is some work when I was at China at Fudan and Tongji universities with some of our first scholars programs, and with some of the faculty that we were working with the One Health Teaching Scholars Program, which is again trying to improve education throughout medical education throughout Asia using kind of a train-the-trainer model. And this was at Thammasat University. Again, my colleague and mentor and friend, Dr. Michael Wintz, with whom I teach quite a bit. A lot of that stuff got shut down during the pandemic since we were doing on-site visits. But engaged learning and the troubles that people have and the commonality of suffering and of joy are the same no matter where you go. And, we had done work also in India. And these are just sort of some shots, and at the University of Peradeniya in Sri Lanka. The nice thing about sort of some of the work that we're doing, since it's methodological for education, is that we teach people in allied health. So it's, medicine, veterinary medicine, nursing, pharmacy, all the rest of that stuff together. And this is, you can really see differences in practice patterns. So for instance, their dentists do really advanced maxillofacial surgery and do skin flaps and other types of things that usually teams of people would do. And the equipment and all the same, this is pretty much the same. Their class sizes are much larger, and the way they teach is much larger too. The way they teach is oftentimes in group, but most people are moving towards small group teaching methods. And I was standing at a table. So this is one of the dissection labs that they were doing for the veterinary school. So the vet school is one of the better ones in Sri Lanka. And so the point of showing you all of this is that, America is a melting pot of a lot of ethnicities, and there's a lot of commonalities in the human experience. And to be able to understand what sort of programs to build, you have to really be compassionate. And then really make sure things are very tailored. And precision medicine techniques are very important, you know. I spent 3 years, let's skip this one. So over time, I became more interested in things having to do with scalable technologies that can improve healthcare and to address health inequities. So I wanted to bring some of the stuff that I was doing before and apply it in new settings. And so I moved to Stanford from UC Davis about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now. And this is sort of the undergraduate campus, and then the medical school, of course, if you guys have been there. And I wanted to sort of bring it back to the projects that I've been working on. Is this too much, or is this okay for you guys? Okay. All right. So I'm sorry?
This is fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So again, I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. Okay. So the first one is the CARE Scholars Program. This is a program, so we have a Center for Asian Health Research and Education that Lata Prangnathan and Bryant Lin started about 4 or 5 years ago now in 2018, so it's almost a few years. And, you know, as a health services researcher and medical educator, they'd asked me to be program director for this program, and we built it out from 5 students to about 24 this year and put a lot of infrastructure into it. And the goal was to be able to train young people who were in college and early graduate school, to be able to be leaders in global health and be able to do precision medicine research with large databases. So I'm just going to show you a quick video on that. So you kind of have a sense of the program that we built out. And I think that you guys had asked me to talk about sort of some fun projects and things to kind of as a entry point to additional conversation. Can you guys see the screen? Okay. So this is our CARE Scholars Program.
At Stanford CARE Scholars, we're training the next generation of innovators in Asian American and global health. We provide these future leaders with the research, leadership, and innovation tools they need to create equity in precision medicine.
Most of all, Stanford CARE Scholars is a community made up of outstanding undergraduate and graduate students from around the world. We emphasize deep mentoring relationships with Stanford faculty, personalized career development, and wellness through self-care. We want our students to be ready to change the world.
This was one of the most rewarding experiences in my budding academic and medical journey. I'm incredibly proud to have been a member of the CARE Scholars Program, and I can't wait to continue collaborating with my fellow scholars in the years to come.
So that's the program. You know, we've had a lot of fun building it. And so that's one of the streams of things that I'm doing. Hold on one second. No, it's the wrong thing again. And if you guys are interested, you can just Google Stanford CARE Scholars, and there's more information about it. And this is something that if you're interested in the future, once you're in college, you can certainly apply for it. It's a fairly competitive application process, but we get students from all around the world. And so, you know, this is important because for Asian health, which is a field that is new to me, that I'm going into, there's about 6 to 7% of the U.S. population Asian, but only 0.2%, so less than 1% of NIH funding goes into Asian health research. So we're trying to build out a lot of the tools and think about things of equity from a very holistic perspective. Okay. So let's skip all this since I just showed you the video. This is some of the stuff for the video. Okay, so then the next set of things that I thought would be fun to talk about sort of virtual health education, right? So everything's moving to the web. And so when you're doing things remotely, you need to be able to think about precision healthcare at home. And there's a lot of home-based care technology. And but as we're doing that, we need to not just sort of adapt to you need to do more than just try to take what you're doing clinically and make it relevant on the in the home virtual care side, but you've got to really tailor the technology to what's possible. So we made a bunch of videos around virtual healthcare and how to do it well. And this video has been watched, I think, by about 20, 30,000 people or so in healthcare. Have been doing a little bit of work, as I'd mentioned, in media, just because we want to reduce scientific misinformation, and began evaluating some of the programs that we had in around virtual health, and had done a little bit of work with system transformation and came out with some models for how care can be done in the virtual environment a little bit better. These are just a few of the things that we're doing. Let me just get this. So, not everything that you're going to try. One of the lessons, I think, is that not everything that you try is going to really work. I came here thinking I'd be spending most of my time working on emerging technologies and doing advisory work. And I started doing some advisory work with a few companies that really didn't work out quite the way I thought it was. Oftentimes they were changing direction. And it was really fun to learn about them, but they didn't, despite all the, despite effort, it didn't really lead to the kind of long-term collaboration I thought it may have. And you should really be unafraid when an opportunity comes your way. Just say yes to it and try it out. One of my friends gave me a helpful rule of thumb is that up until you're 40, say yes to anything that seems great. And then after that, really kind of, protect your time and winnow down. I have not, I don't know if there's really an age cutoff for it. You've got to kind of see how much bandwidth you have and how much you want to explore versus do things that you already know how to do. And so I'm medical director of a grant that Rusty Hoffman is the PI of. That's kind of a multi-collaboration, trying to increase access to care by using AI algorithms to be able to triage patients better. And is funded by the Stanford Catalyst program, which is a grant to an internal funding mechanism at Stanford between the hospital system and the medical school to fund transformational technologies that might really impact care. And so really, what we're trying to do is say, if you zoom in to the, like to see your doctor, or you come to an emergency department, is there a way that machine learning can help us predict, will this patient be admitted or not? And, so that kind of clinical judgment is really, really difficult. So we're going to see if the machine can do as well as humans in terms of being able to get some automatic triage going to be able to expedite people and, get them discharged to home faster, get them admitted to the hospital faster. And if they come in by video to say, should you stay home? Should you be, should you have more rapid evaluation, or should they just really go to the emergency department? So it's to expedite and speed up care. And the current, accuracy of predicting whether or not someone's going to get admitted or not, it's about, 60 to 80% or so when people first come in. And so we're seeing if we can do as well as or better than that. And we're collecting videos right now we're in the process of data collection. But it's been very fun for me to learn about this area, which is bringing together some of the stuff I'm really good at, which is in clinical trials and managing teams of learners and things that I really don't know that much about, that I'm learning a lot more about having to do with machine learning, since my coding skills are really limited to statistical programming as opposed to some of the other things. So the idea is that you don't have to do everything, but you certainly can participate in quite a few things. And there's going to be things where you're really quite the expert, and things in which you're going to partner with people all around the country and all around the world, really. And it's through that team science model that the complex things get done. So a big lesson that I've learned along the way is please make sure that when you're thinking about projects that you want to do, that you're thinking about them collaboratively. You don't have to do everything by yourself, and you won't be able to because you just don't have enough time. And this is kind of part of the team. This is sort of how the team is structured right now. And I'm going to just kind of go forward just a little bit. And so this is some of the stuff that we do and the computer visioning portion of it, which is pretty cool, which again, I'm not the expert in this. I'm just showing you the types of people that you get to collaborate with. And so, the idea is really for anything that you do, you can really change the world. And, it's really imperative that you think about, so, the part of the world I'm trying to change and I'd like to work on is being able to improve equity through building good programs. As a sideline, the thing that I really enjoy doing is mentorship. So I'm being asked to mentor a bunch of junior faculty and other people in regards to some of their research work and helping them have a voice so that they can impact the programs and things that they're really interested in also. So yeah, so I think that that's sort of the end of my prepared comments, and I hope that that was helpful to give you a flavor of some of the things that I've been doing.
Awesome, thank you. If any of our members have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat or just ask them now. One thing that I found pretty interesting is that my parents are both computer scientists. They talk about sort of computer science finding its way into all different types of fields. And you also talked a lot about like machine learning and like lots of programs in medicine. So how is that like changing the field of medicine? Like, is it?
It's completely changed. It's going to make so there's several things, right? So first of all, everything that we're doing, even our meeting today, is based on technology. And so there's a very human side of medicine that's really all about connection and empathy and bedside teaching, and about being able to help guide someone to better health and being there with them through their illness on a one-on-one level. Okay, and then there's and that's a very important part of medicine. But the other part of medicine is delivering health and healthcare to populations and having tools to support their decision making. And that's where a lot of the programs and technologies come into play, right? So for instance, even now when if you get an EKG, which is looking at the electrical rhythm of your heart, there are programs that will do automatic readings for you. And then the person with expertise, it's a good rough cut initially. It's not always accurate. You've got to read it yourself. But there's a lot of things that are assistive technologies like that. And so the way I think about a lot of things happening in the AI world is that you want things that can support your judgment, but not substitute for your judgment. You don't want an algorithm practicing medicine, but making suggestions to see how things can be better, or giving you some guidance along the way and say, have you considered this? Have you considered that? So that's part of what I think where machine learning is going. The thing is that you need the right data sets. Because when you're doing anything having to do with computation, it's always garbage in, garbage out. And if you don't include certain groups in the population, the conclusions that you're going to draw are going to be incorrect for a population not in the one that you did your testing in or your validation in. So let me give you some concrete examples, right? So there's a lot of sort of YouTube videos, if you Google this, that showed that when people were even developing paper towel dispensers, that the people who were in the room who were developing them at the time were all a bunch of white guys. And so when someone who was darker pigmented and had a lot more melanin would put their hand underneath the dispenser, it actually wouldn't dispense any paper towels. And so you need to, there's a lot of work that's being done right now to make sure that we have appropriate inclusion and participation from people of all ethnicities and cultures in the data sets that are being created to train these AI instruments. So I think the future for AI is expanding within healthcare, but it's one of the many things that's expanding, right? I think that we're going to be able to do a lot more precision analytics, and we're going to be able to do, I hope, a lot more personalized care. But at the same time, you don't want to lose track of what makes medicine so wonderful and so personally gratifying, which is the connection with individuals. So you kind of have the best of both. And I'm not a computer scientist, I'm a data scientist. So that's obviously that. I'm not speaking from authority of programming all
day. Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions?
Okay. Okay. I really liked how you touched on the equity of healthcare and how healthcare problems are different for populations around the world. So both my parents are Asian, and my question to you is, I am also really interested in starting organizations for tackling the equity of healthcare problems around the world. How would you say, are there any tips and tricks on how you would start an organization, or how would you start tackling problems in different regions for
Yeah,
healthcare?
so the first question is, you've got to find the problem that you want to tackle, right? What gap are you trying to fix? What problem needs to be solved? And then once you figure that out, you start to really ask, what are the best ways of addressing the problem, and not to go in initially with a preconceived idea. Because once you start investigating, so needs analysis is the most important portion of deciding where to focus. There's a very famous quote by Einstein where he said, if I had 1 hour to live and a question to solve, or a question to answer, I'd spend 90% of my time on figuring out what question to ask. And then after that, figuring out what to do about it. So you've got to really, I butchered a very eloquent quote, but it's to that point. So I think that the first thing is to figure out which problem is worth tackling, and then gathering the partners to be able to work on the problem, and making sure you have an appropriate approach. And the appropriate approach might not come right away. There's going to be some things that people will do that will be a single innovation, scalable, and there will be other things where you're just going to need a coalition of partners. But then the main thing is to have enthusiasm and passion for the thing that you want to fix. At least from my perspective.
Okay. Thank you. So I kind of had a question as well about more. You touched a little bit on how COVID affected your work, and I was kind of hoping you could go a bit more into that, and how it kind of set back what you were trying to do, like what projects you were working on, or like maybe how it affected your daily life even.
Oh, sure, yeah. So COVID so while many people in service industries and tourism and in many of the professions were unemployed, and restaurants closed, stores went out of business, things like that. And healthcare, it was the opposite. We had more work than we could possibly do, both clinical as well as all the research things, to be able to make sure that we were getting access to care, access to good information, building programs that support all the clinical work. It was like so busy, I can't even tell you, like you just felt like you could never sleep, on top of directly providing care to people. And so for someone like me who does clinical work and who does all the rest of the stuff, I've never been so busy. And you're busy by yourself because you can't see anybody. And so we had to switch all of our programs to virtual. So the Care Scholar program I was telling you about, we switched it really quickly from being an in-person program to being a virtual program. All of the international teaching I was doing, we couldn't do because we were doing things on site with people, and there was all these country level restrictions, and it wasn't safe to travel initially in the pandemic. So we're trying to figure out with time zone differences, is it possible to build out programs that would be either online only and have some of our content material available to kind of teach in seminar style in another way and give the content to other people, or should we just pause it for now and then create additional programs later when we can kind of go back again or have people come to the States. So it was really, really busy. The telehealth, working on telehealth at that time was very exciting because the technologies had not been widely adopted, and there were real reasons that they hadn't been adopted. The biggest one was funding. The government previously really didn't want to pay very much for telehealth, but then with the pandemic, that was the only way to deliver care for a lot of things. So that was a really big shift. And so, I was working with people who were building those programs, and I was helping them, as someone who does like program evaluation and educational program evaluation, I was working with them on trying to figure out how to evaluate those programs and how to think about them and conceptualize them. So, and then, what opportunities we had to be able to build things out even further. So it was a very exciting time. It's still very exciting because there's lots more opportunities coming up to be able to do this kind of work. And I mean, I can tell you lots of stories of patients and of programs and projects if you want, but the overall thing is we just have been very, 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 very busy.
Thank you.
I had a question about your academic trajectory. So can you share a little bit of the choices that you made and what inspired you to follow this career path?
Yeah, I mean, I think like with a lot of things with most people's careers, there's some things that you plan that you think you're going to do. Like I knew I wanted to go into medicine at some point in time, partly because my grandfather told me I had to. He's like, there's no doctors in the family. You know, we had engineers and all. I mean, I say that as a joke, but it's also true, right? You kind of like if you're embedded in a large family and you like everybody, you sort of listen to your elders to some degree. But I love medicine and I love the connections that I would get with people, and I would shadow doctors earlier, and I thought it was, wonderful. And I didn't realize the scope of what was possible, which is why I'm really excited that you're doing this series for your high school. Because medicine's a very broad field, and as you can tell, even with the stuff I've done, there's a ton of things you can do within it. You're not limited, and you can do public health, you can do advocacy, you can do research, teach, you can start international programs, whatever you want to do. You can be an entrepreneur, or you can be an investor. I mean, it's an unlimited number of things. And I think of medicine as both a healing field, but also a platform. And so there's been things that have been deliberate, like, wanting to, like working hard and wanting to get into medical school. And then there's things that have been just sheer luck, being in the right place at the right time. And, people always say luck favors a prepared mind. So the idea would be that you need to be prepared for the opportunities when they come along and recognize an opportunity when you see it. So part of the reason I got involved with Stanford Care is I was in clinic, and Bryant Lynn, who was one of the co-founders of this new center, and I were just chatting about things. And we had conversations that basically led to me joining the center. And so that was, something that was fortuitous and lucky. And a lot of things have happened that way for some of the consulting work that I've done. You just sort of talk with people and start talking about and sharing shared interest. I was doing some work on mindfulness and in physical examination, for instance, and was teaching it to students. And I was on a plane coming back from Germany because I was one of the companies that I was trying to start with, a robotics company, and the team was based in Germany, and so I was like visiting my friends out there who were doing the company. And on the way back, I was sitting next to this guy, and we were just talking about stuff, and he was talking about. I said, he said, what do you do and what are you most excited about? And at the time, I was really excited about like mindfulness-based physical exam. And I said, what do you do? He's like, well, I do mindfulness-based leadership. So we just had this great conversation. And then he's now teaching in my Care Scholars program. And he actually teaches at Stanford for other things too. He's got his own leadership company. But it's just that these fortuitous things that happen. And so I don't think that if you'd asked me when I was in high school, would I end up like leaving Chicago, not going out east like everybody who I know, but coming out west to California and be a professor at Stanford, I probably would just have not believed it because it's a very windy path to be able to get to wherever you get. And I don't know anybody who hasn't had a combination of just happenstance and luck. Plus a lot of hard work, who has had an interesting career. And I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of my career. So I don't know. I mean, if you say, what are you going to do in 5 years? I'm going to keep some of the stuff that I'm doing, but some of it will evolve. And I'm sure that you've met, so my things have been much more around methodology in terms of how to approach problems and how to build programs. I like building programs, maybe you can tell. So other people have a singular focus area. They're like, I'm going to eradicate hepatitis B from the world, right? Or I'm going to fix air pollution, or I'm going to fix something. So I don't have a singular topic content. I have methodologic expertise that I apply to different problems.
Thank you for answering my question.
Is that like too long of an answer?
No, you're fine.
So I have another question. So especially in the medical field, you're like directly involved with your patients' lives. So how do you kind of manage the stress that's like involved with, being right there next to the patient? And what are some anecdotes you've had from experiences like that in the past?
Yeah, so when I was really early in my career, it was, so one of the things that you learn in clinical medicine is that, you really need to be empathetic, but you can't be empathetic to the point that you're either paralyzed or to the point that you can't guide someone. Like your job is to be able to really be with the person. But if you are overly involved, you're going to lose objectivity and won't be able to help guide them and make good decisions. And early on, that was really hard. I was doing a lot of work with patients who were very sick, and I still remember the first person who I had who died. I was a third-year medical student at I think it was St. Joseph's Hospital, which is one of the affiliated hospitals for Northwestern, on doing a pulmonary rotation, and there was a woman who had fibrotic lung disease, and she just couldn't breathe, and she was so unhappy, and she was ready to die. And she had, and I kept on going in to ask her, can I help you? Is there anything I can do? I just felt so badly because there was nothing we can do. Her lung was just scarred down. And she was really, she just said at some point in time, she said, please don't come in, it's stressing me. And she's like, I want to talk to my family because I'm ready to take off my mask. And so she had decided that she couldn't live the way she was. And she had a conference with her family. And in the end, she took off her mask and with sort of sedation and medical help passed away as peacefully as she could. And it really, I was just devastated because I really cared about her. And, I really was not well for a couple of days. But over time, as you see people both who are sick and who get better, and some people who are sick and then and pass away, you sort of learn how to separate the medical, how to be caring and how to be very loving of people, but at the same time have enough of a wall up, not a barrier that you're still able to function, and you're still able to take care of everybody else, because it's not just one person you're taking care of. One person's having a terrible day, the other person's having a fairly good day because they're recovering. And so there's a lot of day-to-day stuff. I could go on about that for a long time, but for the first person who you take care of, you'll never forget.
So I had one more question. Just maybe I don't know how much time we have left, but I kind of wanted to ask this before we ran out of time. So it was just, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to someone that is not really 100% sure about going into medicine, like whether it be research or like actually becoming a general practitioner, like surgeon or something of the sort, what would you say that piece of advice is to kind of like determine what it is you really want to do?
I think that in life you should just, for me, the number one thing is to be curious, then followed by be brave, and then be kind, right? If you can do those things, you will have a very successful life. You don't have to do any one particular thing. No one should feel locked into doing one thing or the other. And if you don't think healthcare is right for you, don't do it. Do something else. There's lots of things to do. And if you're a happy person, you're going to be happy doing almost anything. And if you like the profession but don't like the setting, change it. So I just think that we have to be brave in life and be adventurous. So don't be afraid to try things. And if you don't like it, then do something else.
Thank you.
But always be kind. You have to be kind to everybody.
If anyone else has a question, I think we have time for about one more, and then we can go ahead and wrap things up.
I had a question. So you've done I feel like quite a lot of things compared to a lot of the other speakers we have had. So I just wanted to know, what does a typical day look like for you? And also, what are some of the things you enjoy about the medical field and maybe some challenges that you feel?
Yeah, so I don't really have a typical day because I do a lot of like block work. So, if I'm doing clinical work, I'm doing right now mainly urgent care and teaching in a resident clinic. So when I'm doing urgent care, I'm in clinic from like 9 a.m. to about 10 p.m. You see a patient every 30 minutes or so. So you have about 20 patients a day, which is a lot, but it's very doable. And that's several days a month. And then once a week, I have resident teaching clinic, which is super duper fun, which I love, in which you're sort of teaching the residents about patient care and seeing patients with them. And it's very collegial and it's fun because you get to teach the learners and you get to take care of patients, which is great. And then on the other days, I can show you my calendar, but there's a lot of meetings, a lot of teaching, putting together these programs, administering them, working on research papers. I do some work in sometimes when I have time in like the flu clinic or the free clinics with the students. And so, it's a combination of lots of different things. I don't have a typical day, but every day is a lot of meetings and they tend to be pretty long days because I think I keep on taking on too many projects. And I'm not really good at taking my own advice, which is, say no to the things that you really that aren't going to help as much or that you don't need to do, because I just, I'm curious. And a lot of these things are things that I think would be fun or people that I want to work with. So I pick projects based on three things, right? So the first is a project going to be impactful? The second, are they people that I want to work with? And then the third is, will I get something out of it? And so to get something out of it's usually like if you're in business, it's probably you get money or stock, right? But if you're in medicine, you get a fun collaboration. You learn something new. It feeds your soul in some way. And so like talking with you guys is really fun. And it's so nice of you to. I love the series that you're doing, and I want to support people who are doing good work. And so you guys are doing a really great job of opening your minds to lots of different perspectives, and to do that so early is really commendable. So I don't have a typical day, but I have principles that I use to guide what I say yes to.
Thank you. So if anyone else has any other questions, they can go ahead and ask them. Otherwise, I think we can close up.
Was this useful at all? Was this interesting? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like this was one of the most insightful talks we've ever had. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, most of our speakers don't take the effort to put in a presentation. We really appreciate it a lot. So thank you for that. Thank you everyone for joining. And again, Dr. Srinivasan, thank you for making the time in your busy schedule and giving us insights into your career trajectory and choices. Our membership has had to make decisions about our own futures, and your advice will help us determine our next steps forward. And I know you've inspired quite a few of us to learn more. I also want to express my appreciation for Mr. Chow, our advisor, who has helped us launch this organization and is supporting us on many fronts. I encourage all of our members to I recommend future speakers for our seminars next year. And please continue to join us. We're not done with our year because we are still focusing on our MedGives initiative. We're partnering with Friends of Children with Special Needs. And as aspiring medical professionals, we have a responsibility to strengthen the social sector as well. So officers, if you could stay back just a couple of minutes, that would be great. Otherwise, everyone else is free to go. Thanks everyone for joining.
So nice to meet everybody.
Thank you so much for having and taking the time to talk to us today. I appreciate it.
Bye. Thank you for talking to us today.
Yeah, have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
You too, everyone.